All right, so next problem up. As always, we're going to read that question sentence first. So here, question sentence, again, starting with the who, what, when, where, how many, which of the following, right there. How many pencils are there? Okay, so here's what we're going to do first. We're going to understand what we're looking for. Okay, the number of pencils. So I'll write that down nice and easy. Pencils equals blank. And this is something that we really need to get good at here. After we write down what we're looking for, let's make sure we write the information down properly. I'm not saying write down what you want to see. I'm saying write down what is actually there. When you get the facts right, it is so much easier to get your setup right. So here's what I mean. In this same sentence, right before this comma, you see that it says, if there are 45 items total. So let me highlight that right there, 45 items total, and let's write that over here. So pencils equals that, and I'll say total equals 45. Now, here's what I meant about making sure we follow the facts. We see here that it says pencils and pens are packed in a 3-to-2 ratio. So remember, as always, the order that the information is written, it matters. So we see that pencils were listed first and 3 was listed first. So that means that pencils is 3 in terms of the ratio. So when I write that down, everybody, I'm not going to write it down under total. I'm going to write it down under pencils. I want to be consistent, especially if I suspect that this is a proportion question. We want to be consistent. So I'll say here, pencils in terms of the parts of pencils is 3. Now here's where most people will make a mistake. Pay very close attention here. Second, we see pens. And then the second number listed is 2. So allow me to highlight that here in green and that in green right there. Here's where the mistake is typically made. Most people, seeing that there's a gap right here, will try to stuff pens equals 2. That's what a lot of folks will do. And again, that's only because a lot of folks have math anxiety that will materialize in rushing. It'll look like rushing most cases. But everyone, you tell me, if I were to set up a proportion, does this compare the same things in the same way? I see pencils over pencils. Is this the same comparison in the same way all the way through? It is not. Unfortunately, it is not. Because although we have pencils as the second idea here, as the second item, the first item that we're comparing over here is the total number of items. The item that we're comparing here is pens. So we cannot, in good faith, we can't say that total to pencils is the same as pens to pencils. It's not. However, everybody, if we take a little step back, we have some recourse. There's something we can absolutely do. But first, let me remove the pens from over there. Let me just copy the number of pencils over here. Everyone, you tell me, what is one of the best ways or easiest ways to get a total? Because again, we want to compare total to pencils. Let's get total to pencils over here. Yeah, and that's going to be with addition. So let me write total over here and show you how I get that. So let me go ahead right over here. If we have 2 parts pens to 3 parts pencils, adding them together gets us that total. And that'll be 5 total parts. That's what I'm going to include right here. And that's what I'll do. Boom. There's 5. Now that we have the proper setup, now we're in a pretty good spot to write this proportion, solve it, and get our proper answer immediately. Let me show you here. I'll put P for pencils. So I'll go ahead and say 45, which is the total, over P, which represents pencils, equals 5, again, which represents that total, over 3, which represents pencils. Boom, there we go. Remember, it's all about comparing the same things in the same way. If we can be consistent with that comparison, we're good to go. This is set up properly. And now we can proceed to solve this whether with cross multiplication and division, or any other method that we choose. I'll just go ahead and do cross multiplication. P times 5 is 5p. And then we have 45 times 3. Even if you don't know that at the top of your head, no worries. We can go ahead and perform that multiplication right here. 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1. And then we have 4 times 3, which is 12. Bring that 1 back, and that'll be 13. So 135. I'll just put this over a highlighter so we don't mix it up later. But there we are, 135. Now, lastly here, we're going to go ahead and do the second part of cross multiplication, which is going to be division. So divide by 5 on the left, divide by 5 on the right. And now we'll just go ahead and take a moment to do some long division here. So 5 going into 135. 5 goes into 13. That'll be twice. We'll subtract 5 times 2, which is 10. 3 left over. And then we'll bring the 5 down. So we have 5 going into 35. And that'll end up being 7. So 27 will be the answer. Cancels out on the left. And then we have P equals, again, 27. That is the number of pencils that we have, which is going to be answer choice A. All right, here we go. Problem here. First thing we do is we're going to read that question sentence. So first thing right over here, how much flour does she have now? So we're going to take that question sentence, and that doesn't really tell us a whole lot, really, because it doesn't really tell anything about the story. So all I know is that we want to know how much flour we have now. So that means that, again, something probably happened. So let's just go ahead and read the information. Sarah has this many pounds of flour. She uses this many pounds to bake cookies and then buys another 2.4 pounds at the store. All right, everybody. So it's really not going to be about the numbers. It's going to be about what the numbers mean. So one more time. Here's our friend Sarah. She has 3.5 pounds of flour. So we're going to just treat that as 3.5 right over here. Then from there, it says she uses. Everybody, the word uses, what might that mean in this context? When we're using some amount, yeah, that's going to be subtraction. So Sarah uses this many pounds, so we are going to be subtracting 1.8 pounds. And then from there it reads, and then buys another 2.4 pounds at the store. Everyone, what can we say the word buys implies? Yeah, that means addition. That means we're gaining some more. By going to the store, we purchase it and we get more of it. So boom, there we are. So we can say that buying another 2.4 pounds is going to be just adding right over here. All right, so there we go. That's the math that we have to do. So as you can tell, we're dealing with decimals and there are no excuses. You know that it's your responsibility to be able to handle decimals. And at the same time, if you want to save some time on this problem, we can notice that instead of subtracting 1.8 first, and then add 2.4, to be honest, everybody, take a look. I can actually say this. Instead of subtracting first and adding second, I can add first and subtract second. Take a look. This is going to make things slightly easier because when I go ahead and add 3.5 and 2.4, look at what this helps me out with. 0.5 and 0.4 makes 0.9. 3 plus 2 makes 5. So we have 5.9. And when I go ahead and subtract the 1.8, notice that I don't have to borrow now. I don't have to borrow anything because I can straight up go 9 minus 8. And we all know that that's going to be 1. And so then 5 minus 1 gives us 4. And so our final answer is going to be 4.1. And there we are. Booyah, nice and easy. 4.1 pounds, which is answer choice A.